Right, so I'm starting the lab portion now. I'm starting the recorder. And the focus of this part of the class is kind of more of a hands-on kind of thing. So I want to show you the assignment first. Once again, I'm not assigning it today. I'm going to assign it on Wednesday. So the due date is going to be next Wednesday. I have to change it because I was thinking that I might have enough time to go over the entire thing in class. But since I have to do some of that in the lab portion, I'm going to defer, make it a little bit, give you guys a little more time.
We don't have class on Monday, September.
Sorry?
Do we have a class on Monday, September? Because it's Labor Day.
Oh, that's right. It is Labor Day. My wife kept telling me, don't buy anything until next Monday. So that's why.
So we don't.
Yeah, so it has to be the next Wednesday then. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna change it to next Wednesday. I'm not usually very good at tracking holidays and stuff like that. I think every day should be a school day. Because that would apply to my kids too. Okay, so here's your project proposal. It has a 1 in it because it's not going to be the only project proposal, because your project is going to change in nature. You're going to say, well, now that I know how to do this, I want to incorporate that. Or you might say, oh, that's really hard to do. I might want to take it out. So once again, I'm not going to hold you accountable based on this project proposal. So do not feel that, oh, I'm not really quite sure whether I can do this or not. I better not say that, okay? Put in everything, okay? So I can look at what you want to do, and then I can give you a feedback of, okay, I think this is doable. This may be a little stretching it. You might want to focus on this first, and so on and so forth, okay? All right. So the project proposal is for an Android app that makes use of your, this is for the entire project, to make use of your skill that you learn in this class for the entire semester. So don't focus on what you can do at this point, but what you will be able to do throughout here at the end of the semester. The purpose of this particular assignment is to get you to start to think about your final project, because unless I make it an assignment, some people will just go like, I'll think about it later. We still have a lot of weeks before the end of the semester, so instead of getting people to procrastinate, which I do a lot, so I understand, let's go ahead and start the process, okay? So I'm not going to hold you accountable, so you will not be held responsible for everything that you mentioned in this proposal, and you should look at this as a seed document that outlines what you want to do at by the end of this semester. So I want you to start with an overall description of your of your project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my own homework assignment as a student. Okay, so let me start up another browser and sign into Moodle. But this time I'm going to use my student identity to sign into Moodle. And I will try to add to the class if I'm not in it already. Probably not in it already. Okay, so I have to get my enrollment key. Okay, I apologize for all of this stuff here because it can be a little bit confusing what I'm doing here. Just bear with me for a little bit more, because I just need to look up what is the enrollment key. I think it's just Android. Nope, Lollipop. That was the version of Android when I made this. It's Lollipop. Okay. Go back to here. And because I made this, I have to finish my syllabus first. Do you guys see a longer syllabi these days compared to like 10 years ago? Just overall, not just me. No, it's just me.
Yeah, I haven't paid attention, I guess.
10 years ago, I was in 6th grade, so I don't know.
Well, even in 6th grade, the teacher will give you a syllabus at the beginning of a class.
I think it was about 1 page, if there was one.
And they will ask your parent to sign it too.
Yeah.
I know because I just signed a few. Okay. Because what I want to do is I'm going to do this homework assignment based on the field target match assistant. So this way it will give you an idea of what you need to do and what to include in the submission. Okay, so I think this should be it. Submit all and finish. Okay, now everything else should open up. Yep. Alright, so I'm going to do my own homework assignment down here. Project proposal. What you will see in this homework assignment is when you say add submission, there are 2 things that you need to do. One is the online text area. If you scroll all the way to the end of the homework assignment at the bottom, you see the online text. The online text is basically an HTML editor area where you just give me the description, give me a list of the values, and a list of the use cases. Okay, I will fill this up myself in today's lecture. Okay, I will show you guys exactly how to do that. And then there's also a file submission area when you turn in the UML diagram that you're going to create in Omelet, UMLET. Okay, so those are the 2 things that you have to turn in. All right, so first thing first, I'm going to go back to the description of the homework assignment, which is here. Okay, so I want you to write a short, okay, let me just kind of zoom in so you can see better. So I want you to write a short paragraph to describe your app. The description can be fairly general or it can be detailed depending on how you want to put it. Look at this as a reminder to yourself so that you don't forget what this app is about. Okay, so this is a documentation tool for yourself as well. Okay, it's not just a homework assignment. So I'm going to switch back to my student view and just start typing. So what I want to do is I want to start with description. So this way, as an instructor, I can see that this is the beginning of description. So make it using the header of medium. Okay, you can use the other types of header. It just has to stand out. So I want to do the description here. So I would say, oh, this is not H3 anymore. This part is just a paragraph. So I would just say, this apps makes it convenient to keep track of scores in field target matches. It will also offer other convenience related to field target matches. Okay, so it's just fairly general, but at least I can tell one of 2 things. One is it helps to keep track of scores in field target matches. So that's a big deal already because now I know, okay, so generally speaking, people will be installing this app to do that. But I'm also adding some other convenience features, just as I discover, oh, it would be kind of cool to do that too, but it's not exactly just tracking score. I can add it into the app as well. So I'm leaving some open space for myself here. Okay, so that takes care of the overall description part. Now I want to have an inventory of App Inventor components, and I want to identify which ones I might want to use in this app. Okay. So what you will need to do is to start up App Inventor. So you start up App Inventor here. And you don't have to actually create a project. All you have to do is to go through the components and just say, okay, I think this is going to be useful, that's going to be useful. Just give me a list of the type of components that you think will be useful. Okay? So you kind of have an idea of how people would want to use the app already, but just by going through this list here, you can basically say, okay, this is what is going to be useful. So for the purpose of the field target match scorecard, if I want to have a pictorial record of what a particular lane looks like, okay, I might want to turn on the camera. I want to take photographs and have that linked in with my app. So I would go to sensors and just say, oh, not sensors, media, and say I want to use camera. So I would go back to my homework assignment and say under components, I would just go ahead and list all the components that I think I will find useful in this app. And I'm going to use a bulleted list here. It is actually a requirement that you need to use a bulleted list. So I'm just going to say, camera is going to be useful. Then I switch back and forth between App Inventor and the homework assignment because I want to see what else I want to use in this app here. Now, if you don't have to write down buttons or labels and stuff like that. So all the user interaction elements or components, it's kind of implied that you're going to use some portions of that. So that's not really going to be important. But I would also have some use of GPS. So I want to look at location sensor. Let's see, where is it? Location sensor. Because I want to be able to look up a map and see where each lane is, the relative location of each lane. So I'm going to use location sensor as well. So I go here and say location sensor. All right, getting back to here, orientation sensor. So it only has those. Pedometer, probably not. And it doesn't have a compass. Okay, the compass would be useful, but since it's not there, I'm not gonna too concerned about that. Social, probably none of this. Maybe texting, okay, because I have to have a way to turn in my scorecard to the match director. So I'm just gonna put it here, texting, just like that. Are there any questions at this point of what I'm doing? I'm just going through all the components and identify the ones that I probably want to include in my app, just because I think that's going to be useful in this app here. All right. So I'm just going to make a list of those three, and then I move on to the homework description again. So I'm done with an inventory of App Inventor components. So now I want to talk about the values of the app. Okay, so I start another header that starts with values. And once again, I want to use a bulleted list because this way I can easily get to a particular section and read and know what I'm reading. Okay, so I don't have to read like paragraphs of sentences just to try to identify, okay, what is this, and so on. So the value of this particular app here is to convenient way to track scores. Okay, so that would be a value. Another value of this app is I want to be able to improve. Okay, but I cannot improve if I cannot go back to the history of a previous app and be able to diagnose, why did I miss this target? Why did I miss that target? What did other people do with this target, and so on? So a particular value is to help improve shooting skills. Okay. How is this app going to do it? Hey, we'll deal with that later. Okay, we'll deal with that with use cases. But one reason that I want to install this app is it might help me become a better competitor. Okay, is that okay so far? And you can see that these are all objective things that you want to do or people want to do. They're not really actions on their own. So you can see the difference between a value as opposed to an objective, as opposed to a use case, excuse me. Okay? All right. So I will just go ahead and move on. In other words, you don't have to use the waterfall model. So getting back to the waterfall versus the agile model, when you do this homework assignment, don't think that you have to sit down for 3 hours straight and get everything done, from top to bottom. You just sit down, you do a little bit, and you go like, okay, this is all I can think of at this point. I will save the document, and then I'll improve this, add more things to it later on. You have 1 week, more than 1 week to work on this, so just get started as quickly as possible, but don't force yourself to say, okay, I have to finish it in one single shot. Give yourself a little bit of time to revise your own document, to add or delete features, change the way things are described, and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here with the values, and then the next one are the use cases. Okay, so use cases, and once again I'm going to use a header style so that it stands out. This makes it easier for the grader, me, to locate all these things that I need to locate and make it a bulleted list. Alright, so now I'm down to the point where, okay, let's say somebody downloaded this app and installed it. How do I think that person is going to use this particular app? That's what the use cases are about. Okay, so these have to be, they all have to start with verbs. Okay, a use case has to start with a verb. So the first one is to track score in a match. Okay, try to make it as descriptive as possible, because I could have just said track score. Okay, but I'm going to say track score in a match. Okay, which means it's real time. I'm not, it's a real time thing. Review score. Okay. In other words, at some later point in time, I might want to say, oh, 2 matches ago, I don't remember how I did, 2 matches ago. I want to be able to go back and review, my score 2 matches ago. So review score of a match. Okay. Rank participants after a match. Okay, so a match director may use this particular use case at the end of a match and just say, okay, let's see who won this match today. Okay, so that's one of the things. And I'm just going to say, look, my brain is a little bit, saturated at this point. I'm going to, do this or add to it a little bit later. Now, let's think about some things, and let me know whether it should be a use case or not. Okay. Edit score in a match. Okay. So, do you think that should be a use case or not be a use case?
Not a use case.
It's not a use case because it is a part of something that people use to tie into a value. In other words, by itself, it doesn't serve a value. Because by itself, there's nothing to edit. You have to be able to log something first, to track something first. So I would just say that this is something that is inside track score in a match. And instead of by itself, being a separate use case. Okay? All right. So this is the descriptive part. Now I want to turn this into a match use case diagram. So first thing I need to do is to download Omelette. Okay, so we already had that link open all the way. Ooh, where is it? You can always find it again. Omelette download. Okay, so I'm getting back to the Omelette download page, and I'm just going to download the latest one as a zip file. Yep.
Question for Mac. What do I?
Same thing. It's in Java, so it should work.
It doesn't work.
What-
You
what-
just have a zip file with.
It gives you a zip file, so go ahead and unzip the file.
No, a zip file there, and it.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so this is what you need to do. Go ahead and download it first.
Yeah, I did.
And okay, I'm using Linux here, so it's going to be a little bit different compared to a Mac or Windows machine. So let me finish the download, and then I'll show you what to do with it.
It's not
Microsoft
supported.
Windows applications are not
I'm just going through this real fast and see whether they have anything specific to an operating system. No, it doesn't seem that way. Okay, let me do this first. So I got 1 second left. Now it's fully downloaded. So let me go to a command line prompt here. Go to downloads. Okay, so when you download it, it is a zip file. I'm gonna unzip the file. And it will create a subfolder called Umlet, U-M-L-E-T, uppercase U. And then inside here is a jar file. So do not run the executable on a Mac. It's not gonna work. Okay. So what you need to do if you have a Mac is, I think the shell would work, or you can just use Java directly on the jar file. Okay, let me show you here. So in a command line in a Macintosh, if you just say dot and then the space and then omelet.sh, that should start it up. Okay. Yep, it started up for me. So in your case, that should start it as well. If not, if you double click on the jar file, that should open it as well. So I'll try that approach. Just double click on the jar file. Omelet. Okay, see this jar file here?
Yeah.
Just double click it. If it asks you what app to use to open it, just specify Java. That should open it as well.
It did.
Yep, okay. So, and if you're using Windows, you're lucky because you have an executable. Just double click the executable and it should start. So are we doing okay so far? Now this does not require any installation, which means you can unzip the file onto a external hard drive, and you should be able to start it from the external hard drive. Is that okay? All right. So I'm gonna do this again. Start it up. And I want to use this to document my project. So what you need to do is to go to this drop-down box here. I'm just going to maximize it. See this drop-down box here? If you click the drop-down box, it will show you all the different diagrams that you can draw with Omelet. We are not going to deal with all of these things here. The only one I need is an Omelet use case, a UML use case. So go to UML use case and click it. And what that will do is it will show you what type of things can be in a use case diagram. So you can see a magic stick figure, you can see the use case bubbles, and you can also see the connecting lines. Are we doing okay so far with this demonstration? Sort of? Okay? Alright. So now you need to get these things onto the other side. Okay? I think you can just right click it and do a copy, and double click may work as well. So I'm going to do a double click. Yeah, double click works. If you double click on something on this side, it will appear, a copy of that would appear on the other side. So I'm just going to do this for my app here because I need 2 actors. So now I have 2 actors. Now you don't want to just name them actors because I cannot tell which one is which one. So you want to change the properties. So to change the properties, just go to the property pane. And I want to call the first one a field target participant. And the other one is going to be a field target match director. So field target match director. So now I have 2 actors, and each one has its specific name. I have 3 use cases as per the description in Moodle. So I'm going to put in like 3 use case bubbles. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Remember, double click on the right hand side and a copy of whatever you're double clicking will appear on the left hand side. So I'm going to change the use cases to use exactly the same phrase that I used in Moodle. So I switch back to the browser. And the first one is track score in a match, and you can just copy and paste. So copy, switch over, paste. There we go. Got the first one. And if it doesn't look good, just go ahead and resize it. Okay, this part. Okay, not too difficult to do. The second one is going to match this one. So once again, copy on one side, and just paste on the other side, and resize it so it looks a little bit better. And the same thing for the third one. So Copy. Paste. All right. So I'm almost done with this use case diagram. So now I have to draw connections between the actors and the use cases. Put a line here first. Track score in a match is something a participant wants to do. So you can reorder these things, just so that they're more convenient. So now I can say this for this connection, one endpoint hooks up to here. Okay, there we go. And then the other one hooks up to about the middle part of a participant. Now, when you look at the participant box, okay, you can see the boundary of this thing. The line has to go to the boundary of the box. So now I think it is hooked up. You can see that if it's hooked up properly, if you move the match stick figure, the line moves with it. And the same thing with a use case. Okay, let me do that one more time. So this time I want to connect review score of a match to a participant. So once again, double click on the line that is not an arrow. This is a solid line that is not an arrow. Move one end to touch one end of a use case. Move the other end. Now this is the more difficult part because it doesn't touch the match stick figure. It has to touch the frame or the surrounding of a match stick figure. So this might take you a little bit of practice because it's a little bit harder to use, but you can see how the participant is now hooked to the lines, and you can move the participant and the lines will move with it. And I just need a third one for ranking participants, and double click on this. Once again, hook up one end to the bubble, the other end to the frame of an actor, which is kind of the difficult part because you can't really see the frame until you click on the match stick figure. So that's it. So what I will do next is to save this document. So I'm going to save it, and on the first time when you run it, it automatically creates its own folder. So you can either put it there or you can put it under your documents folder. Wherever you want to put it is fine. You just have to remember where you put it. So I'm going to put it under my documents folder, which does not exist yet. So I'm going to create one. And under documents, I'll just say use case diagram 1. Click save. So now I have saved the file. I go back to Moodle, go to Files Submission, just click here, browse to my Documents folder, retrieve that file. I don't have to change the name, whatever, however you want to name that is fine. Upload the file. It will give you kind of like a funky icon because a omelet file is basically a XML file, and that's why it has this angle brackets and the slash, because it's an XML file. You have to remember to click Save Changes. So now I have just finished one round of my homework assignment. Because you can see the online text, if you click the plus sign, it will expand it. This is what I typed earlier. And also in terms of file submission, here's my file. Are there any questions about this process? So you have to turn in both the description and the file. Yep.
So we have to write all that text on
Yes.
that specifically, not just a Word document.
I would prefer to see it as an HTML document, so I don't have to do something else to open your Word document. You can probably do some editing and then copy and paste it, but pasting from Word usually doesn't work very well in Moodle. Okay, so what if you decide, okay, I want to add some more use cases and use some more actors, so that other people, like bystanders, can also use this app to view the progress of the competition and see, head to head, who's leading the game and stuff like that. What if you want to add that? Well, first of all, you have to change the description itself, and then second thing is to change the file that you're turning in, because you're going to have more actors and more use cases. So I'm going to show you guys how to add to whatever you have turned in already. You click Edit Submission, And the first part is fairly easy because the HTML editor will just reopen the document itself, and now you can just say in the description here, okay, bystanders can use this app to observe a match. Okay, so now you have to add to the components, maybe something in addition to what you have already, or maybe not, okay, depending on how you want to allow a bystander to view the progress of a game. But it is implying that you need to have some sort of connectivity to a web-based resource, because otherwise the bystander would have no way of connecting to the progress of the match. So if you know what kind of component you might need, you can just write it down. Okay, I might say your Firebase component, because that's a remote database that an app can access. So in terms of value, I'm gonna have an additional value here. Promote field target matches to the public, because that's why I want to allow bystanders to observe the game. I want to promote the game itself. Yep. Question? Saw a hand a little bit earlier. Yep. Okay.
Google product, Firebase?
Say again?
Firebase is a Google thing?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Cool. And it's also a component in App Inventor.
Is Fire the old Fusion?
I do not think they are the same thing, but I think they may be related, but not exactly the same thing.
Did the one replace the other?
I don't think they do fusion tables anymore, so that may be the case.
Okay.
So in terms of use cases, I have one more use case now, right? Because I have observe match from the bystander perspective. Now I have a new use case. So this part is easy. The other part is I have to reopen the file, but since I already have it open, it's not a big deal. So now I have to add another actor, because a bystander is not a match director, a bystander is not a participant. So I have to change this to bystander or observer, however you want to call that. And I have a new use case here. The new use case, I'm going to use exactly the same phrase, which is observe match. And I need get rid of that. I need a new connector. So there we go. Connect one side here. Connect the other side to just one notch beyond the match stick figure, which is about there. So now we have a new use case. Remember to save the file again. Okay. Now here comes the tricky part. It doesn't give me an option to upload again. Well, that's because the homework assignment is only expecting one file. If you have already uploaded the file, it won't let you upload again. But that's okay, because you can turn the file that you upload into a 0 by deleting it. So the way to do that is to click the file that you have already uploaded, the one that is supposed to be outdated. Click delete. Now, before you click delete, make sure that you mean to delete it, okay? Because once you delete, I have no way to retrieve it, okay? So delete it. Now you can see that the download button is here again. So upload. So you can re-upload the file, which is updated. So this is where you might want to double check and make sure the timestamp is newer than the other one. Because a lot of times we do all the editing and then we re-upload, forgetting to save first. So that will basically effectively upload the same file all over again. It's not going to be helpful. So make sure that you save the file in Omelette first, then upload it again. Okay, and you can also always double check the modification time of the file just to make sure it is the updated version. So I'm gonna re-upload this. Click upload this file. I take a little bit of time. Okay, it's uploaded. Don't forget to save changes, okay? If you do not click save changes, then none of the things that I have done, none of the additions that I have done up to this point is going to be on Moodle, okay? So you got to remember to click save changes. And now I have just made modifications to my submission by extending the description. Okay, I'm including Firebase now. I am including one additional value to this app here and one more use case, and also the file itself is updated. Okay. What if you put everything on the thumb drive, like Omelet itself, and also your UML diagram, your use case diagram on the thumb drive, and unfortunately, when you get in the car to drive to school, in the process, you drop the thumb drive on the floor, in the parking lot, and then you roll over it, and it's completely destroyed. So what do? Go talk to tech and ask for an extension? No, Omelet is easy. You just re-download and reinstall it, right? It's just one zip file, no problem. But what about the homework assignment? I put all that time into it. If you had uploaded your document and keep Moodle up to date, you just have to sign into Moodle and download this file back to work on it. So that's the other thing about Moodle. You can use Moodle as a parking place for the files that you're working on. Okay, you can save it on your thumb drive for convenience, but just to make sure that you have a copy that you have turned in already and you won't lose it, just turn it in. I'm not going to grade it until after the due date. Yep.
So in that HTML area, can you save it in there without submitting it, or do you have to submit it?
The submissions are always quote unquote submitted. In other words, I can see it, but I'm not going to grade it until after the due date. So is that answering your question?
Is that what you recommend? Is that what you're talking about? Keeping
Oh,
it
I would totally use Moodle to keep track of different revisions of your document. Just because it's online, you don't need to back up anything. It's not saved on your computer. There was another hand. Yep.
You want to send money to people through an app? Is that possible to have that?
Sending money to somebody else. It is possible. There are probably a few ways to do it. First way is to have your app and use Activity Starter to start PayPal or some other app on the same phone. But that means whoever is installing your app need to have the PayPal app already installed, which may or may not be a good thing. Second thing you can do is to use a web component. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, so if you want to use a payment type of thing, you can use I think it's under connectivity. You can use a web component. A web component is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a mini web browser that you can control where it goes and how big it is, and it's going to be in your app. So it is as if it is a part of your app, but inside the web component, you can point it to any URL, including PayPal.com. So that's one way to do it. Now you have to be.
Avoid PayPal because Facebook kind of has to send you over. You can send money.
Well, it's just a web page. If you know the URL, just point it to that URL. But you have to be careful because the Android marketplace has a box to see if you have any type of in-app purchase option, and it wants all the in-app purchase to be done through approved ways that Google, has listed. So so you might want to read the documentation as far as Android app release is concerned. Yep.
I was taking a look at the Android API, and I know that they have a Wi-Fi peer-to-peer thing, and because one of the apps that I wanted to develop requires really low latency, so Bluetooth is obviously going to be a little bit higher latency, like 200 milliseconds versus 150 milliseconds seems to be the general estimate. Does App Inventor have things for peer-to-peer Wi-Fi? As is the Android API?
Yeah, but you have to remember, only a very small subset of the Android API is presented in App Inventor. So what you just mentioned probably is not supported in App Inventor.
So we could go in and add that.
You can add your own component, but I have not done that before because when you look at the components, the very last part of it is extension. Let me see if I can do this today. It didn't work the other day, and it's not working today. I think it's a button issue. I think the auto setup button is not registering. And I do have the necessary screwdriver to open it up. Maybe I'll do it later. But it's not, let me just kind of slide the browser over so you can see. See this extension here? It gives you the ability to define your own extension. So if what you describe is an extension that you want to do, there's a way to make your own component to use it, but I don't know how to do it. So you might want to, if that's what you want to do, I'm not going to stop you, but you will probably have to read some documentation of how to get this done. Okay? Okay, so are we good in terms of knowing how to get the assignment done? Are there any questions related to getting this assignment done? What parts you have to turn in and how to turn it in? Are there any questions? And as I said, it can be over ambitious to begin with. We'll just have to train features accordingly. Okay, so we can actually get it done. Any questions at this point? Yep.
So on Dropbox, or not Dropbox, on Moodle, we need to put in the description of the app and also the UXF file?
Mm-hmm. Yep. There are two parts to what you need to turn in. The description, a list of components that you think you'll be using, a list of values of your app, and a list of use cases. And then on top of that, you have to turn in the use case diagram that you make in Omelette. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. No other questions. So I'm going to do a quick survey because that's going to help me determine how fast I can go and what I can talk about in the class. How many people have taken at least one programming class before? And I'm counting 300, 370, any type of programming classes.
Here
Okay.
or anywhere?
Anywhere, doesn't matter. Yep. Okay. So we have most people taking one class already. Are you taking P300 this semester? Okay. All right. So that's okay. It's not an issue. I just need to know that to determine, how to teach certain concepts of this class. So what I would usually do in this class is, I will have something for people who are taking cisp 300 this semester. So I'll start with the basic stuff like conditional statements, loops, and stuff like that, variables, local variables, functions, subroutines, that sort of thing. But I will also kind of talk about more advanced features for people who have already taken at least one programming class before. So that's usually the format. And the grading of your project is based on what you know already. Okay, so if you are taking P300 this semester, I'm not gonna say, hey, I need a recursive subroutine to be in your project. That's not gonna happen. Okay. On the other hand, if you have taken a programming class before, I'm hoping that you would make your project a little bit more challenging because you already know the basic stuff. You can actually start with more complex logic to get more things done. But the minimum requirement is based on people who are taking P300 or P370 in the same semester. Now, if you have any questions, so let's say you have taken one or two programming classes before, you have taken a web class before, and a few other things, and you want to know, okay, is it possible to do this? Okay, don't hesitate to ask those questions because the worst thing that can happen is, well, we can talk about this, but it's going to be out of the scope of this class, or I can say it's really kind of hard to do, or I might just go ahead and say, okay, let's do this. Let me show you how to get it done. Okay, so do not hesitate to ask questions because you think, well, maybe it's out of the scope of this class. Well, I can give you that feedback if it really is, but if it's not, it can benefit the whole class. I can just show you guys how to do it. Okay. Any questions? No questions? All right. And do you guys know how much you have to pay in the Bay Area to get into a boot camp for app programming?
$2,000, probably.
I don't remember exactly, but I know it's some unreasonable amount of money. So I'm gonna type in here Bay Area App Development Boot Camp. Okay, coding boot camp. Number 1, app development boot camp. Okay. 12-week program. So let's see how much they're charging. Now you have to remember that we are not using Android Studio in this class, so it's not really the same thing. It's not like comparing apple to apple. But at the end of this class, you will be able to write certain apps. Okay, it's limiting to what App Inventor allows you to do, but it's still a lot. Yep.
How much of the knowledge is transferable?
Say again?
How much of the knowledge is transferable? So the concepts and everything, are they going to transfer?
That is a good question. It depends on how you look at it. Now, when you look at App Inventor, okay, so when you look at this, the general idea of how to lay out the control of an app, that's totally transferable. Especially when you're talking about something that is not graphics intensive, or games is out of this. Okay, we are not going to talk about games. But when you're talking about apps that are functional and just have certain things to do, how you place your buttons, your text boxes, and stuff like that, how to design the layout of the screen. I would say a lot of that is transferable because it's mostly just ideas, concept, and not actual Android-dependent features or App Inventor-dependent features. When you're talking about programming logic, which in this case is based on blocks and not statements, a lot of that is transferable as well. Because when you look at control, a conditional statement is a conditional statement. You can be programming in Objective-C, in Java, in PHP, in Perl, in Python. The syntax can be different, they may look different, but a conditional statement is a conditional statement. So when you look at things from the higher level perspective, a lot of what you're doing here is just regular programming. When you look at things from the perspective of event-driven programming, that's transferable. Okay, because almost all apps, any type of user interface-based app programs are going to be event-driven. So the concept of, the program doesn't do a single thing, it's just waiting for an event and then respond to it, that's transferable. Now what is not transferable would be certain things that are restrictive because of App Inventor. Okay, so certain things you can do in App Inventor, but only up to a certain point, that is not transferable. Like in App Inventor, the only place you can detect a swipe action is inside the canvas. But in general, in Android or iOS, the entire screen is swipe sensitive, and you don't need to restrict yourself to a particular thing that is swipe sensitive. So from that perspective, it's not transferable, because in App Inventor, they try to put you in a sandbox where it's more limiting, but it's also easier to get things done if it gives you, if the blocks can do it.
The way the sensor data comes is the same between Java and the raw data.
Okay, so to answer the question, you have to look at multiple levels too. In App Inventor, it gives you only one way to interact with your app. So your button can only detect clicks. Okay, it cannot detect swipes, it cannot detect other type of motions. But inside a regular Android app, most of the time you only care about clicks. In other words, you can write a program and say, okay, here's a button, and it's only going to respond to clicks. For everything else, I'm just going to ignore. But at the same time, if a swipe action on a button is useful, you can probably detect it with a general Android app.
What about like the motion sensing or GPS inputs or those?
That I have no experience with in terms of actual Android programming. I would say the Android model is going to be more flexible. It can give you a gazillion options, where in App Inventor it gives you like one single event. In Android actual programming, it might give you a lot more options, but at the same time you will have to dig through more stuff just to learn how to do it. Yep. There was another question. Okay. Yeah.
Is all the stuff in the Java in the Android
Well, the term framework, is basically defining how components relate to each other. So that forms a framework. So that part still applies because we still have a certain type of components, and how they interact. You still have event-driven programming for one thing, and two, it is still semi-object oriented. Okay. It's not entirely object-oriented programming because we don't have classes. There's no way for me to manufacture new objects. But the objects which are in the form of components, they are still objects. And it's still object-oriented programming because if you want to change the text of a label, then you say, which label, the text of which label do you want to change? That's object-oriented programming right there.
It's just you're limited on the amount of objects.
Right, you cannot manufacture objects on the fly. So you cannot say, oh, you know what, I want to have a new label to appear over here. You can't do that in an App Inventor. But in Android, you can do that all day long. You can say, oh, I just want to crank out more and more labels. Go ahead. You can just manufacture more and more objects. So those are concerns of people who are more experienced, who already know object-oriented programming and just want to make the app more flexible. Now I can share some tricks with you guys so you can actually quote-unquote emulate the effect of multiple objects, the clones of objects, but without actually having the ability to do cloned objects. So we can, when we get to that point, I will show you guys how to do something like that. I have discovered a lot of tricks to get around limitations. Okay, any other questions? Has anyone checked out the apps written by other people? Remember I showed you guys? Huh?
Programs from this class.
No, not from this class, but from other people.
You
Go
know
ahead.
about the gallery?
Yeah.
Did you get that email I sent to you over the weekend? I just added a new app into the gallery.
Oh, I haven't checked that out, but I received your email. But thanks for sharing. But I haven't checked it out yet. I was busy getting ready for the field target match.
How'd you do?
I did okay, given that the rifle that I brought along was new to me, and people kept asking where's the other half of the gun. So it was fun. It was good. It's one of those, most people think about shooting as really loud and powder and smoke and stuff like that. Not with air guns, okay? It's very social. I was chatting the whole time with my squad mate, the person who's shooting with me to keep score. And guess what? The other two lanes were chatting with us too. So the whole thing was just, chat, just a lot of chit-chatting. And it's a shooting event. People were just, they were chatting about just about anything, not just related to the match itself. It's fun. All right. Anything else? Are you guys getting ideas of what you want to do for your own app? Does anyone need help with that?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You said that we can read your materials ahead, like
Yes.
to be prepared for the lecture. And I tried to read the this lecture actually, and you changed it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and so how it works actually? Is it still?
Well, if I
like
change it, you
about-
kind of have to look at the date and go like, oh man, it just got changed. So you just kind of read it again.
Okay, but what about next lecture Wednesday? Is it something is there or it's nothing is still is there now?
Okay, so the lecture on
Wednesday.
Wednesday is going to be, we're going to boot, okay, so if you look at this ordering, sometimes I would teach stuff, out of order, sometimes.
Oh, okay. Because for me it's a second, English is a second language. It's useful to read ahead, but it's make me confused when I
Yeah.
read it. Then
Yeah, so
else.
according to this, according to this order, we're going to talk about screen layout, issues, event handling. Those are concepts.
And where is it?
It's under basic user interface.
Oh, okay. So it's not application design. Okay.
We are already almost
It's not-
done with it.
It's not on this. choice, right?
Huh?
It's not from your also from
Oh.
your syllabus. It's just scratch it, right?
Yeah, the syllabus is generated from the curriculum, but this is actually how I want to order the topics. So the
Okay.
next one that we will talk about would be basic user interface. That's what we're going to talk about on
Oh, okay.
on Wednesday.
So the whole thing, right?
Well, just kind of read through, some of those. You don't have to read through all the things,
Yeah.
everything.
Well, when I'm thinking, is it
Mhm.
still useful to read or just don't?
It will still be useful to read. It's just that I might add to what I already have here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if you have problems, thinking about a project to do, you can just, come to my office hour. Okay, it's 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we can just kind of brainstorm and try to come up with some ideas. Okay, but I want you guys to do something that is fun to you, something that you think you are going to use, instead of, oh, okay, my professor told me to do this. Okay, I want you to have your own idea of, designing your own app, and then we'll implement it. Hopefully at the end of the semester you end up with an app that you can use for stuff that you are actually doing. Okay. Any questions? Yep. Only the kind of tricky ones. So forget all the user interface ones, because you're gonna have some of those anyway. So, besides the user interface, what else do you think you want to include in your app? Because otherwise you have a long list starting with buttons and labels and text boxes. Yeah, I don't need those. I just need the tricky ones like location sensor, orientation sensor, that sort of thing. All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to stop the recorder, but the lab is still on. I'm going to be here until 1:20. But you guys can do your homework at this point, or you can go get lunch if you want to. That's because my designer view already has other things. So as you put more components into your app, then more things will start to appear. Because the stuff under blocks represent actions that components can highlight. So as you put more components into the app, then you start to see more components on the block side, and then you can click those to find out, okay, here we have a location sensor, right? What can I do with the location sensor? Click on the location sensor and show you all the blocks related to a location sensor. Let me start the recorder first. I'll be right back.